Cool. So I'll go ahead and kick it off with just a quick reason behind setting this meeting up. I was chatting with Gila, I guess it was maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago on Slack, her and Sam A, and realizing that security, they ran a test and that was a really big driver for kind of like upsell and conversion. It performed really well. And they wanted to know a little bit more about other potential areas within Secure and Protect where we might have other opportunities for doing some exploration for further tests, either in an upsell, a conversion, or what have you. So that's why our respective teams are here. And I thought we could just start with the growth team, talking about any other, like maybe large or relevant initiatives that you have planned for the rest of the year. And then if you could also give a quick recap of any other Secure Protect related tests or performance results. The one that caught my interest selfishly was one of mine around security dashboards. There may be others I wasn't aware of them. And then the Secure and Protect team, I figure we could all go through kind of our areas at a really high level. Ideally, we can show visually some of the different pieces, if that's cool. I'm happy to go first. I put my name kind of towards the end there, but I can jump to the front. But yeah, just so we can kind of show off things that the growth team may not be aware of that we've got in the product. And then we'll leave the rest for brainstorming.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Matt, first of all, for organizing this. I can give a very high level and Mike can add more details. What if Sam joins later, he probably has some more specific experiments he can share as well. So growth team has been focused on kind of the new user experience. And our primary goal is to drive free to paid conversion among all the new users within their first 90 days. And there are a couple kind of streams of work. One is Sam's team has been primarily focused on trial experience. Because trial, we observe that if you take a trial, your chance of converting is much higher than those who just sign up a free account and explore on their own. Specifically within trial, because all our current trials are the ultimate trial, we will work on a lot of experiments trying to highlight what are the paid features you have used and try to guide people to those better paid features. And a lot of the experiments like Sam has planned will be around if you use a free version of a particular feature, how we can capture that, maybe guide you to use the better paid version. So that's one potential. And if we saw you use certain like secure features, free versions, how do we make sure we guide you to the right place rather than you have to explore on your own? So understanding from your team, what are the possible opportunities, right? What if there is a free version of this, there is a better version in paid, that's very helpful. Also, what are some potential context we can upsell about free features, paid features? For example, if you run a pipeline or something, is there a right moment we actually talk about the security in that? So that will be something really helpful for our team. And then Mike and Jensen and their teams will be focused on new user onboarding. They actually are specifically going to drive some feature adoption. Currently we're focusing on create and verify as the first two, but we definitely want to move to secure and protect as well, because it's a very important upsell driver. One thing we are working on is, so in terms of realistics, we are working on the overall sign-up flow, the trial flow. We're also working on some persistent onboarding experience after you finish the initial more structured sign-up flow or trial flow. So basically in the product, if you are beginning to explore what are the zero page experience, the first time you go to the secure tab, the first time you go to the verify tab, how do we get you started? And also some sort of like a checklist or very new user focused onboarding experience to try to understand what you are here for, your job to be done, and guide you through a list of tasks to walk you through that. Mike, you can add more. I'm sure you have more kind of details on that part.
Yeah, thanks, Hila. I think you did a great job covering everything there. So yeah, kind of what Hila's saying, we think about the new user experience as kind of the first mile, we call it, is like your initial, like first couple minutes, the account setup, if you will. So like get your group created, get through the initial flow, and then you're in the product. And then from there, we're exploring this continuous onboarding, which is kind of more of this checklist, which is, we're going to start MVC, but ultimately you could see an experience where I come to GitLab, I say why I'm here, what I'm interested in learning more, and then I get a customized kind of like, okay, you said this, so here's what you should do, and here's the things you should experience. It's going to take a while to get to a full-fledged solution there, but that's kind of the structure and the framework we're thinking of. In terms of things what we're doing related to secure, so Jensen is the one working to drive Verify. He's out on parental leave for the next few months, so I'm helping to cover for his work there, but he already has plans in which to try to introduce users to Verify via a SAST template. So this is where there's kind of some overlap, I think, with Verify as well as aspects of secure. So that's, I think, another opportunity if we can drive people into experiencing more of those stages. Ultimately, I think one thing we're trying to do is get people to experience more stages as an organization. That SPO metric that we have is very interesting. And I think that is kind of the value of GitLab is, more than just one point solution. It's all of the solutions underneath, a single umbrella. And if we can get you to experience that early and how those stages work in concert with each other, that's kind of the aha moment. That's when the credit card comes out and people want to pay. So that's in, high level, the framework we're thinking of in growth to try to get users engaged early, seeing the value early, and then feeling like this is a no-brainer. Let's go ahead and sign up and pay.
Cool. Well, thanks, Mike and Hila. Were there any other, so you mentioned trying to introduce users to Verify via SaaS templates, and then what kind of triggered this for me was, I guess, showing users I think it was the security dashboards in particular. I may have the exact test wrong, but it was something around the dashboards, or if that's where users sort of landed first, making sure that they return to that. Have there been any other security related tests so far, or is that kind of the extent of it?
I think Sam Owizik has done a couple, I think, related to secure. There was, I think, one around kind of expressing interest in the feature, and then that I don't know the exact details of the two that he had, but I think that's what initiated this conversation. So hopefully he can jump in or provide a little more color later. I don't have a ton of info on those specific tests, unfortunately.
Gotcha. It sounds like it's still kind of scratching the surface though. So there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, I think in general in growth, we're kind of just starting to scratch the surface on a few of these things, and we're starting to see some promising areas, and like we're digging in a little deeper on them. But we're still, I think, getting into a good rhythm of getting experiments launched and analyzing the data and kind of rinse repeat. I think the last couple of months we're seeing more momentum there, and I'm hoping that continues forward through this year. And then we start to really see some winners and then kind of dig in further and start to drive some stronger results out of these experiments.
All right. We can flip it over to our side. I don't know, Nicole, I see you in process typing. You're welcome to go first, but I'm also happy to jump in and show and tell.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can shut off. I don't have anything in free, and I know you were referencing like we should try and take the things that are in free and push people, but that's not going to work out for dependency scanning and license compliance. So right now, the main things that you can see, I've got and security tab is right here. Here we go. So in this MR, this is a test project that I did for a demo unfiltered blog post. Basically, all I did was add the dependency scanning default template to the My Test Ruby on Rails project, which is the default starter project template. When you are starting up a new project, you can pick from the templates. And then I added the default template, ran it, And out of the box, it said that there were 4 criticals and 14 high findings with my dependencies. So really where somebody using Ultimate is going to see my stuff is here, and then also here, and then on Matt's dashboards. The kind of 2 catches are you need to merge this merge request in to see it on the dependency list page, which let me go see if it's over on the dependency list page. Because I don't think, yeah, here we go. So this is kind of what we've been saying is as close to we have as an SBOM, and it tells you what dependencies are in your project, and we sort by vulnerable stuff first. And so between the dashboard and here, this is the value that people get out of my dependency scanning and license scanning, because license compliance, we basically have the same list. Well, I didn't run a license scanning job, but it's the same list as dependencies, except it tells you if you're using permissible stuff or not. But people don't run these because they are going to get perceived value out of it. They run it because they have to, because their security team has said, we're not going to allow criticals. So this isn't something they do because they want to. This is something a compliance person or a manager or a security person is going to force the team into having. And then really it's completely useless unless they set up a merge request approval. So even if they do set this up, unless you can get them to the merge request approvals, it's not going to do what the customer wants. And that's actually the #1 question. We've been steadily trying to improve merge request approvals for a little bit now. But obviously that's owned outside my team. So we do what we can where we can, because I don't own it. But if you don't have merge request approvals, basically we don't enforce anything. And so we tell you about these dependencies, but your company policy isn't enforced, and it's completely useless. So I like the idea of you having that, you're talking about that checklist, because if people are interested in security and compliance or enforcing internal policies, if you could walk them through like, okay, do you want to have dependencies SAST, you know, whatever types of scans, check these, we'll put in the default templates. By the way, now you need to set up your merge request approvals, and now put whatever security people or manager people have to sign off to exceptions. That will get them kind of to like the baby steps of being compliant.
That's really cool, Nicole. Thanks for sharing. I had a little idea there. I don't know if this would work, but I know I'm jumping into brainstorming, but I can't help it. I wonder if there's something there that we could kind of expose, that these vulnerabilities exist, but maybe not give you all the details underneath it. It's like, I use Grammarly. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like they have the kind of basic, like you spelled this wrong, or this is the, you know, grammatically incorrect, but then they have some other premier features or premium features that are around like tone and word choice. And I always see like I have 4 or 5 things, but I can't actually see what they are. And I haven't ponied up and paid yet. But I wonder if there's something like that that we could potentially introduce or even have as like a top of the funnel entry point into GitLab.
So kind of 2 things with that. One, to get us down into CE, which Taylor did and suffered through, is not in no way easy, because right now all our code's in EE. So to port it over into CE is not small at all. And then the second part of that is we would have to have that discussion probably with Sid, because Gymnasium was an acquisition. And so up to this point, everyone has been super reluctant to give any of it away for free for kind of 2 reasons. One, because, you know, it's internal IP, and really once we generate that artifact file, even if the UI only exposes a little bit, the customer has all the information. Like there's whatever secret thing you're doing, the customers are going to call us out for being shady as hell, because they have all the data in the artifact. Like it's not like the artifact just says, oh, there's 14 things. It like gives you all of the details of the finding. So.
Got it. So we'd have to change something more fundamental if we wanted to go that route. What would the need be to bring it down to CE? Help me understand that a little more.
So if you're trying to show it to free people, it's got to be able to be seen at that lower level. Although the upgrades only work in EE, don't they?
Yeah, because my understanding is we're trying to not get people onto CE, even if they want to use free. Like you can use free on EE, which is better because if you do decide you want to upgrade, it's a lot smoother.
Right. The problem is that we've been trying to keep CE and core equal. So if something is available in core, it should also be available in CE, just because otherwise you start having a disparity and then it's confusing to explain to customers like, oh, well, you don't have that because you're in CE, not EE. But if we were doing it like as a small experiment, we might be able to get away with something like that.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, for an experiment, we'd probably just start with it on just SaaS, if that's possible, and then see if it's a winner before we do anything more in depth there. That's basically our framework, because we just have better and faster data from SaaS too.
So on this note, this is where all of the things that I've been working on come in, and I'll give you a quick sort of like where we're at with it, because we just gave up last week. Basically, as Nicole explained, we're basically not focusing on the FOSS use case at all. This is EE specifically, which does get us .com, given it's an EE licensed instance. So all the things that I'll show you here in a minute are available for any .com users or any EE users, but we are not spending any more effort or time trying to get it pulled down to CE or FOSS. So I realize y'all probably haven't seen a full end-to-end demo of all the stuff that SAST has been working on. So let me give you a demo of what that looks like with a core account running on .com. Share screen. I want that desktop. Okay, so we've got here a free .com account. Just to prove that, I can start an ultimate trial. So I'm on .com, as you can see. This is just a free project that is public, open to the internet. I'll start by going to the security and compliance page. You'll notice it's this menu item now shows. When you click it, you get a call to action for audit events. This actually, I think, is the first thing that I would recommend y'all to change. This should talk about security tools, not audit events. But if we go over to the configuration tab, you'll see that we've now got a configuration experience that explains to you that you have access to SAST and that you can configure it via a merge request. We also push you into the documentation pages for all of the various scan types. We also have upgrade messaging available. If I try to go to this upgrade message, we direct you to a discover page. I know y'all have been looking at some of these issues. Basically, this is just here's some contextualized information about what ultimate and security tools we have, trying to push you to upgrade. We use this in a few other places, but this is a page that's available now /discover. It's a little hard to build the URL because you have to be in the context of a project, which maybe is something that y'all want to change. But no, we've got this page now to kind of give that sort of guided experience about why you might want to upgrade. So that's the configuration page. I'll just note we are working on trying to get a configuration MR button for secret detection. So from my perspective, SAST and secret detection are the, what's the word I want? It's the gateway into Ultimate, because we have SAST and secret detection available to all customers. So I would recommend any sort of growth or upgrade opportunities to be through the lens of SAST and secret detection. So, okay, let's pretend that we went and configured this real fast. It'll open with setting the default templates. If you're an Ultimate experience, you get a whole guided experience where you can change variables and all of that. Once you merge that merge request, you'll then start getting security scans running. This is what this looks like now in core. will tell you that the scan has run. You don't get any of the nice information or inline details about it. You just get to be able to download your JSON reports. And these are our available SAST and secret detection scanners. I will note that there is one improvement we're making to this to bring you the colorized counts. This has been a whole journey trying to get this enabled. It is built, we're just trying to get it enabled, but this is what this looks like. If you click this little eye, we actually try to promote upgrading to manage vulnerabilities. This learn more goes to that same discover page as I mentioned earlier, so that you can see contextualized information about why you might want to upgrade. So this is the first time that we've done any type of upgrade experience in line, but it's hinged on the fact that you need to have security scans running, which means you need to be able to get to that compliance configure or the security configuration page. So to me, this is the main page that y'all should focus getting people to sort of start that whole experience. Just try SAST and secret detection because it's free for everyone. And then if you like it, upgrade to get that additional experience and additional scan types.
And that dropdown is what Nicole was referring to as we can't run the proprietary scanners or anything that is only an ultimate, because that download, that's what gives you the artifact. That's what Taylor's team added fairly recently. So we have to be very careful what we put in there.
This is great. Yeah, sorry, really quickly, Taylor. So for any new customer, if they go to that page, the secure and compliance, is that the page they will be looking, go to audit or configure?
Yeah, I would recommend that if you click on this, you should go to the configuration page, not this audit events page.
Yeah. And then do you think, this is probably brainstorming as well. Do you think approach where maybe we don't show all of this, we start from only SAST and secret and try to get everyone to do that, and then maybe in somewhere next we show all the other options? Will that be better or worth trying?
Yeah, we try to lots of this page really explain access to other things really complicatedly fast. This page draw things in ultimate too, so there's stuff here that is not exposed in the core edition. So there's a lot of logic on this page. We did explore one route where what we could do is when you click security and compliance, we land you on the discover page, and there's just sort of a call to action for you to go and configure that. That's kind of reversing what we've got today. I actually think this would be a really strong A/B test to do. There's that we didn't initially, but this was sort of what my recommendation would be.
So just a note, we technically got approval for everything based on open source to become available for free, but just like SAST, where you're just getting the artifact. So we're giving you all the information, but we're not giving you a pretty dashboard, and we're not giving you the standalone vulnerabilities to make management and triage easy. And so the gymnasium, like I said, is not open source. That's proprietary. Some of the fuzzing stuff is proprietary, but a lot of the other stuff we're using today is open source. It's just that, as Taylor found, it's more work than expected. And I think all of us just don't have engineering time right now. If we suddenly got maybe somebody to help out, that could accelerate if you wanted to do something around that. But just kind of for context around everyone's stuff, we do have approval, I think, right now for the open source stuff to be as free as we want it to if we get engineering time.
Yeah, the only other thing I would mention is that from a helping users understand what they've got access to, it's a little bit of a story. And I think that's where any type of growth or upgrade experience could help sort of put those breadcrumbs along the way. I get asked for this specific page a lot in sales calls and with customers. They just don't quite understand what all they can and can't do on what plans and why they would upgrade. So that to me is sort of where we could do a lot of exploration around messaging and upgrade paths. And
Yeah, I have a quick question. This is kind of maybe more beginner type of question. So for SaaS and Secret, can we do something what Mike suggested? Like, can we expose that you already have this number of issues or vulnerabilities? Can we surface that to all the free users without having the issue that Nicole mentioned?
Yes, we've built that. Like I said, we're having some trouble getting that colorization text enabled for .com. But that is actually built. Again, you still need to have security reports running, which you've got to get them configured first. Yeah, we don't just run that in the background and always have that data. That's something that you have to enable and has to run via your CI.
Is there anything preventing us from doing it automatically on everything other than
CI costs and storage?
Yeah.
It costs CI minutes, yes.
So we would be using up their minutes without them first agreeing to it. Or we'd be eating the cost as a way to give them like the, the gateway, as you're saying,
Right.
First one's free. But
something that Sid has been interested in was allowing everyone to have access to secret detection for free on by default. And we just eat the cost of the runner minutes because secret detection is pretty fast. With that said, there's a lot of work that would need to happen to make that happen. So
got it.
That's that. And a related question is, what we saw in the data is actually early on, there are users or namespaces setting up secure, but the just absolute number is really small. So based on this, are the main users interested in seeing all of this, mainly only secure and compliance person, not everyday developers? Like, who should be our audience if we try to upsell those features or showcase those features? Is that like both or only secure compliance person?
I think it depends. For secrets, I think everyone's interested, like even a regular everyday developer who's working on a personal project or an open source project or whatever. Everyone wants to know if they've leaked secrets. That's like the thing I think everyone can get behind is, did I include a secret?
But all others are mainly
it depends how security. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that it really, like for SaaS, you're going to get a lot more of the developer personas, I think, and probably for like dependency scanning as well. One thing to think about with secure is that you really have two sides of things. You've got the side that is scanning static code, so SaaS dependency scanning, the fuzzing. I can't remember exactly what they called it for the static code fuzzing, but so you've got that side, and then you've got the side that's scanning or dealing with running applications, so DAST and API fuzzing, and then that also gets into the protect stuff with Sam White's stuff, and that a lot of times appeals more towards the security and compliance personas. DAST can appeal somewhat to developers, but my research in talking to developers and security people is that developers typically don't run DAST scans. So it really depends on what area within security you're talking about. And even like with DAST, the CI/CD scans, maybe we're trying to get more into the developer personas, but The on-demand scans, which is configured completely differently, is going to definitely be more interesting to security and compliance personas. So it's kind of split between the different functionalities.
Gotcha.
I also think that it kind of splits, like you could even have quality people interested in DAST and fuzzing, for example. So I think first off, it depends on who the person is. Do they wear multiple hats? Because if they're responsible for quality and development, because it's a small team, test-driven development, they may be very interested in the fuzzing and the DAST. Or if they're very security conscious, they may be interested in all the things. They may be interested in security because it will get security off their back. And they know the security team keeps saying, we're going to buy this stuff and integrate it in. And they might see this as a way to be like, oh, look, we've already got this, please leave us alone. So I think depending the way that you pitch it, you could attract a developer depending how many hats they're wearing. But exactly like Derek said, it's each different one is kind of got to get pitched slightly differently.
This is very helpful. Then based on your experience, what's your observation? What is a typical path, or what is a path you feel like there is opportunity we should begin to focus on? Is the typical path everyday developer like are interested using some of the general features and they pitch to the security person, or the more typical path or how people buy is there is a security need or security team already and they really want to buy the more advanced ones, and that's how they get started, become a paying customer?
Yeah, I think, anybody else can correct me if they have a different view. I agree with Taylor that what we've seen is that SAST and secret detection tend to be sort of the entry point. Since GitLab is a developer-focused product, you're going to get a lot of developer interest in that. And then, as we've updated our marketing and kind of got the sales teams to focus more on security, there has been a little bit more interest in some of the security teams looking at DAST or compliance or things like that first. But I would say in general, your static code scanning between dependency scanning, SAST, secret detection, that's going to be the main entry point for secure for most GitLab customers, in my opinion.
If I had a magic wand and Taylor had 100 more developers, my wish would be like, as somebody is going in and setting up a project, kind of like you were saying, there was like a checklist or questions or something, like you're setting up the project and right next to the project, it would say, hey, by the way, did you know as a free user, you can get secret detection and SAST and make sure that your code or your open source project or whatever is more secure. And at higher levels, you can get more features, and just leave it at that. And once you get them to run that first thing, then suddenly like have a thing of like, by the way, does your security department want you to integrate all these other things in? You could tell them like, we've got these, and you could just turn them on and you don't have to do any of the work of integrating it in. So like once they the first one's free type situation, ran that, saw how easy it was to get it in their pipeline, like have some kind of nice little hint to the side, like, by the way, we see you're running SAST and secrets. We've got these other security things. If your security team or you or whatever's interested, you can test them out with a free trial and see how easy they are. That would be kind of my pitch to most users.
And we've been obviously focusing on the secure side of things because, that's where what we've been talking about. But, Sam, you can correct me, but I feel like maybe for Protect, this is also very different and that things follow a completely different path.
Yeah, Protect is complicated, right? Like we've got a lot of different stuff in Protect at the moment. We've got sort of the original side of things that used to be Defend, which is protecting applications in a production environment. And for that, we have container network and container host security, but we also have container scanning. And at the moment that's done in the pipeline. So that part is much more in line with everything that we've been talking about with secure. However, we also want to make that available to scan containers in production so that, it kind of spans the gap between like the pipeline versus scanning things running in production. And then lastly, we have our security orchestration category, and that's an overlay category across everything security focused. So not even just secure and protect, but also anything like access or compliance wise that has to do with security. So protect is a little bit of a complicated space, and I guess like the users that we would be targeting, it's not, it depends on which part of protect you're talking about. Taking care of the production side applications, like securing applications while they're running in production, that usually falls on a SecOps team, which is not a persona that we typically have as a user of GitLab today. They're different from the application security users that review the scan results. And so it's really a net new persona for us for the most part. There are exceptions in smaller organizations where you have one person wearing multiple hats. But like in larger organizations, that would be a new person for us entirely. And that one's really tricky to run experiments against too, because we do have both container network and host security in core, but there's no UI around that at all. It's all set up through GitLab managed apps v2. And it's new enough that, again, the core experience has no UI. So you go into your config file, your YAML file, and you add in, to turn on these capabilities, and then we go install it into your production cluster, and then you go edit some more YAML to define what policies you want to apply there. So the experience in core is a little bit tricky. I'm not sure where or how you might prompt them to even start to adopt that right now, and or where you might suggest that they upgrade to Ultimate. I mean, I guess you could, as they're editing their YAML file, if you see those, you would have to like parse it and look for the text in there. And if they were already using it, then you might suggest that they upgrade to Ultimate to get a better editing experience. But there's not a lot, it's not really UI driven at the moment. In Ultimate, we do have a UI that is a little bit easier to use, but again, that's all gated behind Ultimate. So I guess just to start off that discussion on the production side, like there's some opportunity there, but it might be a little bit hard to take advantage of at the moment with growth experiments.
Sam, I'm wondering, you mentioned there is a UI in Ultimate. Would we ever consider an experiment that is kind of leveraging that UI, but maybe locking it down a little bit, or some, I don't know what the UI looks like, so it's hard for me to really visualize it, but is that something that you've thought about at all as a way to just increase visibility and overall like top of the funnel?
Maybe. I'm really hesitant to move that UI down to core because that's a pretty big value add that we've invested in a lot. That's kind of a big part of the selling story there, but let me pull up.
Yeah, I think what I would
show you.
Propose is not like give all the functionality that comes with the UI, but give some kind of way for the user to see what they're missing out on a bit. It maybe just doesn't make sense for the use case. So.
Yeah, so the UI we have, it's in the security and compliance area under threat monitoring, and we have an alert dashboard here. So that shows security alerts across all of GitLab. I guess potentially you could let them see this, but then not let them see any details of the alert. I don't know how well that would go over, but we could potentially like bring this down to core and just let them get the list of alerts with no additional information or something like that.
Yeah, and something like that. I think the tricky thing, which I think you're getting at, is like, how can we do this in a way where we're not upsetting the users ultimately? Because it's like, hey, there's a vulnerability in my code, but you're keeping it hostage from me without forcing me to pay you. It's like kind of extortion.
Exactly.
And so it's like a very fine line to do this well and not have it be perceived as like a money grab.
Have you tried embedding videos into GitLab itself yet? Like, has that been an experiment you've done already?
I don't think we have with anything in growth leverage videos in the UI yet that I can think of. I've done that in
Because
previous places and it's worked fairly well.
yeah, because I'm actually thinking for at least some of Sam White's stuff, like having a short little video on a lander page could be a simple thing where we're not scanning their code and, like you said, holding data hostage, because you're right, that's not going to go over well. But I'm just wondering if we have some opportunities to, I think that would be relatively cheap to record that and put it in a page somewhere and just be like, if you do an upgrade trial, you can see this cool stuff or do this cool stuff.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
like
a great
that
idea
idea.
for an MVC.
I like that idea. I mean, especially if we were able to detect that they were using it in core, that would be, that would be especially interesting for that type of a person to say, hey, you're already using this. Look how much better your experience could be. But to detect that, we would have to parse out their, I forget which YAML file exactly. It's the one that configures GitLab managed apps version 2.
Yeah, I guess the trick would be where to show the video, right? Where and to whom. But I think that's a great idea to think about leveraging video content, Nicole, instead of trying to do heavy engineering lifts to move things down just to keep them gated.
But yeah, it would be in this .gitlab/managed apps/config.yaml. We would be looking for either Cilium installed true. Actually, that's probably the one we would start with. There are other things we could look for in the future, but that's probably the best starting spot. So we'd have to see if they had Cilium set to install true. And if they were on a core or free plan, then that might be a prompter for some sort of a video to show them the potential for an improved experience.
Sam, where do you think it would make sense to surface that video? Like, is there an area? You said there's no real UI, so where might that person who's interacting with that be in the app?
Yeah, so I guess the experience in core, so they would go in, they set Cilium installed to true, it's going to run, it's going to install Cilium. Then once that's up and running, they'll go into their project, and assuming they're using auto DevOps, so they would have to be using auto DevOps, but you go to the .gitlab folder /auto deploy values.yaml, and then they would manually put in their network policy in YAML here. So it's not a great experience. They have to know how to write a network policy, first of all, because there's no guidance here. But I don't know if it would be too intrusive or if it would be perceived as an ad to have like, hey, watch a video, like see what you could get in Ultimate, some sort of a link up here. But it would be like when they're editing this file would probably be the best thing. Otherwise, it would just be like in an email. Might be the other way to do it. Like I get emails from my mortgage company that says, hey, watch a personalized video based on your mortgage. We might do something like that says, based off your usage in GitLab, watch a personalized video on how Ultimate could improve your experience. So I don't know, that might be another route to go. It's more of an email campaign type thing.
Yeah, email will be easier to start with for sure. As long as we have the video and we have that usage trigger, we can test to see how people respond. If it works, maybe we can move it into the product, which will take more dev work.
Yeah, we could probably just try a campaign, like basically identify all those that have that configuration in the CI file, and then pull that list, create a one-time email, and see what % of folks we can get to adopt the higher tiers, and decide, is this an automated thing we should have send every week on a certain date, and just collect everyone from the previous week that set up their YAML file that way.
Yeah, that sounds like probably the easiest and best first step here. And there's more we could potentially do later We're working to allow our policy editor to work for like requiring scans to run, but that's on the roadmap. So that might be a topic we revisit in a few months.
Well, quick time check. So we've got, I think, less than 10 minutes left here. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to show before I wanted to run through a couple of my things?
No, I think that that's fine. My stuff, I mean, we can go through it separately, but I think that yours is much more important for actually getting people engaged.
All right, let me share fast. Find the right window. All right, so vulnerability management is, we do have a lot of the UI components that this is where you're going to see a lot of the information. So we already looked at the merge request. So we do have something in core there, which is nice. Right now, the experience is you do get a little bit more in Ultimate. You can actually see the individual reports. I thought the pipeline might be an interesting place to add a hook in. Mike, it was something you had mentioned that when people end up going to the pipeline to check out, maybe they're just looking at their configuration or a job or something, the security tab only appears for those in Ultimate. This may be a place where you can call it out and then put some sort of a very similar CTA. This is don't think that there's really a lot that we could do to cut this back, because otherwise it would be effectively duplicative of what Taylor has already added on the MR. So by showing them all the vulnerability details, this is the premium functionality. The step back is you would get the same JSONs that came from the last pipeline run in the MR. But this was kind of one of the main areas that I thought would be an interesting CTA for the pipeline interaction. Interestingly enough, some of my data shows that only about 5 to 10% of people that land on the security tab do not come from the MR. So on the MR, when you say, I want to view the full report, it actually takes you here. So Ultimate customer-wise, at least on .com, that's where the majority of traffic to this is. So even just exposing its existence would be, I think, interesting.
That panel right there, the scan details, it just has kind of the quantities. Is that something that we would be okay with providing to free and core users? Because that seems to be like, that's kind of the hook to me, where that's going to pique my interest.
It's got the same limitations as the MR. So you have to have a scan configured and have run in that pipeline. If it's only SAST and secret detection, that's the only thing you would see here. And the counts, this is actually something, excuse me, working through from a UX perspective. This can be a little confusing because the MR only shows scan results from that branch. The pipeline view, this actually shows the combination of things in the feature branch as well as the target branch. So default as well. So it's basically the A plus B view. This number is not going to match what you just saw in the MR if you also have vulnerabilities from the same scanner in the default branch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there is some existing confusion around that. So I'd be a little bit hesitant to do that.
And if I don't have it set up on is there anything on the MR that is like a call to action, or kind of, hey, you don't have the security set up on this MR, you're missing out on vulnerabilities, click here to get things configured?
I think we have anything like that today, unless Taylor, you did something like that on the core version.
No, I don't think so.
Because that seems to potentially, that might be a nice avenue to get people engaged more, because most people are interacting with MRs, right? And if they're seeing that every day, that they're not paying attention to security because they haven't set this up, and it's just hitting them in the face every day that you don't know if you have vulnerabilities. That might be just a way to get them like, what, I probably should do that. Let me click through, and we can make that a few clicks and fairly easy to set up. And we could really open up, again, the top of the funnel there.
Honestly, that's probably something we should have in the product, even in Ultimate, for people that are not running the scans. Beat them over the head that they actually need to have something configured.
Yeah, and then it kind of goes nicely to kind of our strategy and growth of like get them using create and verify, and that's going to be the jumping off point to other areas of the product, and you know, the MR and seeing other pipelines running maybe for just general CI could be that.
Okay. Let's see real quick. So you get the security dashboards. Obviously, none of this is going to work without any underlying scan results. This is one of the kind of, we're going to say sort of off limits to taking down tier. Eventually, this is where we're going to build out a lot more functionality for the security teams, potentially some compliance features as well. However, by not showing these tabs in the free versions, I think we may be missing an opportunity again, just by having more of this menu unpacked to show people what's here. I know we saw the CTA earlier, which showed a group level version of this dashboard. I think that's kind of interesting, but maybe just kind of exposing like, hey, you have these things here. This is what's going to happen if you were to sort of drill into them. You know, the focus can be a little bit different as well. This is more high level. I want to see, you know, this is maybe a little bit more like a team leader or manager. This is the actual where the work gets done. This is where a security team member would be doing their triage. Not sure there's a whole lot we could put here other than, yeah, upsell information.
So this is like a free core user would come here. There's nothing that they would see.
They don't even see these
It's not in
items.
it's not in the sidebar, kind of like the security widget. If you don't have any scans, isn't in the pipeline, which obviously you can experiment with that and then have kind of like Taylor design that little image of you could have this here.
Right. Yeah, that'd be another place potentially for a video. Like, hey, this is what a security engineer would do with this page, and how it would, we could figure out the value prop, and but like a quick 30-second like click around the page, and I've triaged 5 issues in 10 seconds kind of thing might be pretty powerful. Again, I don't know exactly like how this works well enough to know if that's feasible, but the ideas are coming to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it shouldn't be, I say shouldn't be a huge lift. The main change would be showing the security dashboard and vulnerability report as part of the menu structure in a non-ultimate, and then putting whatever video we have in there. But it seems pretty straightforward.
I think the only risk is, I know I see in the SUS and NPS survey a lot that people want to be able to hide features they're not using. And if we're adding even more to the sidebar, they might get agitated. So I don't know if there is anyone working on enabling people at the instance or group level to hide or disable things, but I almost feel like, like if this was a short-term experiment, yeah, let's go for it. But then if we found it effective and wanted to go long-term, I think we'd have to work with someone to make it be like at an instance level or whatever, somebody could
Yeah, and
disable
that's actually in my backlog. That was a really old request from, I think it was from Eric Brinkman's team, to add our little areas over here to the configuration to be able to turn them off. So that's something that we'll be getting to pretty shortly. On the flip side, if you're a free user, I don't know if you you get the right to remove the stuff because you're not paying us yet, but it'll be in there. I guess you can turn it off.
It's the total breadth of the product versus what I actually am using it for, and trying to provide a way for them to have a simple experience, but still be aware of everything that we have. It's a tricky problem to solve.
The last one, this is a new feature that came out in 13.9. I don't have it set up. Oops, actually wrong one. I'll stick on this one. If you are, I think, on a premium user and you look at the Jira integration, it will actually tell you. So I think on the free one, right, the Jira integration says, hey, go ahead and upgrade to premium to get the Jira issue tracker embedded inside. If you've done that, what we added in 13.9 is you can now create Jira issues from vulnerabilities. So this overrides the GitLab issue tracker, and then we'll go straight into whatever project you have configured. If you're on premium, there's a little, this stays here, but there's a little CTA, it's grayed out, and it says, hey, go upgrade to ultimate. Maybe we could do something more with that. It's kind of buried, but it is there in the product. All right. I think that's probably all the hooks that we've got from vulnerability management that are worth mentioning for this kind of stuff. And we're already a little over time. Anything else anyone wanted to see real quick?
Yeah, and I'd also say that, you know, if you do want to go over any of the DAS stuff, like the on-demand stuff that's different than what anybody else is doing at this point, although I know that everybody else wants to have on-demand scans as well, we can go over that in a separate call. It's a pretty simple UI, so it shouldn't take long.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd be game for that. I think this has been super helpful for me personally to understand more about this area, as it's not an area I've had a chance to interact with a ton. So I think there's lots of opportunities for growth to try to drive more adoption of this stage. And I think we have lots of data showing a lot of the higher tier plans and purchases is because of the work that you all are doing directly. So as we maybe figure out, create and verify, there'll be more opportunities to drive secure and some of the other stages related to compliance and security and making sure that the code is safe. I think that's could be a huge lever for us to try to drive more growth.
Yeah, definitely. I think in Q1, our primary focus will still likely be create and verify, but we're actively thinking through the roadmap ideas for Q2 and secure potentially because it ties to so closely to MR to verify as well as trial. So that's why we really appreciate this so that we can learn more. We may reach out back to you for if we begin to kind of have more detailed analysis or ideation, just to make sure we are on the kind of the right track in terms of how we can drive more actions out of this. And this is really helpful. Thank you, Matt, and everyone for educating us.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for all the great questions and everybody for hopping on together. So I think we'll go ahead and call it and we can have follow-ups as needed.
Yeah. Can you share this video so that we can watch?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure we need to watch this multiple times probably.
Do you think this is okay for YouTube?
Yeah, I think so, right? Did we talk about any controversial things like about hiding things or irritating users?
Supporting people maybe is a little controversial, but
Maybe.
okay. We said that we don't want to do that. So
Yeah. I leave up to you, Matt. Like if you want it private, that's totally fine. Or
maybe just since we're talking about potential experiments coming up in the product, we'll go ahead and just leave it private for right now.
okay. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
all right,
Thanks everyone.
Thank you so much.